Welcome back to my channel. It's Destroyer Deception. J. Kells here with another video. Today's video will be part 2 of Should Christian Leaders Have Titles? Story time. In this story time, I'm just quickly communicating the reason why I would no longer call myself pastor. As if any of you guys have watched any of my previous videos from before, I used to call myself Pastor Kelly. And the main reason for it was when I first started this channel back a little over a year ago, going on a year ago, I started a church at the same time. I was going to try to build both, not just in the community of where I am, but also in the social world to reach more people, to help with the building of the people and the community, right? In my conversation with the individual that I was talking with in the comments, we brought up Matthew. He brought up Matthew chapter 23, verse 8, saying that after I responded saying humbly, yes, I do call myself a pastor. I desire to lead people in the way that they should go, right? But in him communicating this, him not knowing that I was in 1 Corinthians now, in around chapter 8 and chapter 9, and Paul is beginning to speak to the questions that the Corinthians had as they wrote him about certain topics. And so in verse 1 of chapter 8, he begins to say something mighty and powerful, right? What he says in chapter 1, verse 8 flows into chapter 9, because he's still talking about the same mindset that was in verse 1 of chapter 8. 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 1. And it reads, "Now as touching things offered unto idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth." Now, what is Paul saying? Paul is saying that we all have some form of knowledge, some form of education, some form of understanding, right? And that knowledge, but in that knowledge and so forth, it puffs us up. It puffs us up in many different ways. And in the puff that he's talking about, it makes us, have a little swagger and boldness about ourselves, to where it begins to put other people down or make other people look bad, or make yourself look in a certain way that, may not be healthy, or it may be good. Everything is not bad. Some of it is good, but it puffs. It elevates. It can elevate if you have knowledge and understanding and so forth. It gives power. As we know, knowledge is power. But he's saying that even in all of that growth in knowledge and greatness that comes with knowledge, charity, which is also associated with love, is the real edification, right? And then he begins to, in chapter 8, continues to talk about certain things. He set a foundation to say, hey, look, knowledge you may have, but work your knowledge through love, right? Which leads me to the next verse. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 19. And it reads, "For though I be free from all men, yet have I made myself servant unto all men, that I may gain the more." So what is he talking about? Go back to verse 1 in chapter 8. He's talking about love, how it edifieth if you walk in that love. So Paul is saying, I care for the people so much that, you know what? I'm going to make myself servant unto them. Goes back to, if you read part 1, if you saw part 1, where the Lord said, in verse 11 of Matthew chapter 23, he stated that you should be, the greatest of you shall be the servant. Paul is saying, I love the people so much that, hey, even though I know I'm free to eat, I'm free to, do certain things, to have a wife, to have a kid, to charge you guys if I wanted to charge you guys, for the gospel and so forth. I'm free to do all these things, but you know what? I'm going to make myself a servant, that I may gain the more, that I may not hinder, that I may not make one stumble or offended or become offended in any form or fashion, that, hey, I become a Jew, to gain the Jew. I become weak to gain the weak. I become under the law to gain the person that's under the law. And so Paul is saying, I do these things in love that I may gain them. And so to answer the long story short, and I try my best not to make this too long, the reason why I would no longer call myself pastor is to gain those folks. And there's no need for me to be called that. We don't call Moses Prophet Moses. We don't call Paul Apostle Paul. We may reference it sometimes and so forth, but you don't call Paul Apostle Paul. We don't say Apostle John, Apostle James, or whatever the case may be. Call them by their name. So why, if we do the same for them and they are the greatest, but we see the servant attitude with them, not having individuals call themselves anything, rabbi, then I could do the same for myself. I could do the same for the people. I could be that example that I should be for the flock, as 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 3 states. That's the reason. So moving forward, hope you guys liked the video. Definitely leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Turn your notification bells on. Share the video with whomever you think is in need. Subscribe right now. It's Destroy Your Deception. J. Kells here, and I'm out.